Hello, everyone, and welcome to the origin story. So, this is a space where we go beyond the bios and the highlight reels to uncover real journeys of women entrepreneurs. The moments when an idea first sparked, the risks that followed, and the pivots that tested them, and the breakthroughs that changed everything. Now, every business you see today started with a decision. It was a moment where someone chose to believe in their vision enough to begin. On this series, I sit down with incredible women who are building businesses, creating impact, and redefining success on their own terms. Because every empire starts with an origin story. I would like to introduce our first guest, Martina Rowley of Martina Rowley and Company. Welcome, Martina.
Hi, Dwania. It's so great to be on your show.
It's so good to have you. Now, we dive right into this show. We dive into questions. But before we dive in, I want to remind everyone, please make sure you support our channel by liking this video. And we are not gatekeepers here. We'd love for you to share everyone's stories and share this video with other entrepreneurs so that they can get inspired. So let's dive right in with Martina. So Martina, take us back. Where did this idea of this business first start?
I actually came to my current business, which is providing virtual business services and virtual business support, in a little bit of a roundabout way through my first business. So I think that was when we met, around the time when I started my first business in 2012.
Wow.
And believe me, you and I had connected at a networking event way back then. And
Yes. Oh my gosh.
right? Yeah, we go that far back. And I had initially started a co-working space in my neighborhood in Toronto. And I loved bringing people together. And I wanted to mesh the community building and making connections in the community with providing support and information and education and training, as well as a bit of an environmental component. So I'd started the bricks and mortar business, and it was a great space. I loved it. My members loved it. The local business owners loved coming there. And it was a great start as a business owner for me with, as you know, that very, very steep learning curve you have when you first start out.
Yeah.
And I provided some in-house administrative support at that time already. So my background, since I'd left school many decades ago, was in the administrative and executive assistant role. And I'd worked in the corporate environment for decades. Until at some point, I just didn't fit into the corporate, that pigeonhole anymore, that very linear, you are in this pay slot and this rank, and you must stay in here. And I no longer fitted that. I wanted and needed more. And eventually I sort of ended up out of the corporate world and looking for something else and something new. So I'd gone through some business training through government, the Ontario government self-employment program initially, and then started this co-working space. And I fairly quickly in the first 2 years found that location, when you have a bricks and mortar, is very important.
Yes.
And while I was in a beautiful neighborhood and there were many business owners there, it was geographically and in terms of public transit, not a great location. So I didn't get enough traffic and foot traffic and enough people coming from the downtown core where the masses live. And I just found it wasn't going to work, sadly. And I had decided then that I needed to close the business. So I closed that space after 2 years. And then some friends of mine whom I'd also worked with previously a little bit, they said, well, what about this, virtual assistant thing? That was still quite new back then. And why don't you go back to your administrative skills, and you're so great at organizing? Why don't you put that together and do that from home? And I needed to now, after that initial bricks and mortar experience, I needed something that was going to have very low overhead. and
Yes.
very low business overhead compared to, having an office with furniture and things, to I need to scale this right back down and do something that's a little safer and rebuild from there. So I looked into the virtual assistant thing, and I gave it sort of a year to see if there was really demand for it. It's like, would small business owners hire a virtual assistant to help them with their back office work? And it turned out very quickly that they did want someone to help them do that. And I got enough clients in the first year to make me recognize this is doable. This is something that can grow. And then I, continued my connections that I'd made through my first business and got some clients through that network, and then grew that and found over the years, found my footing and found my specialties and my passions and who my right clients would be.
Wow. That was kind of your mistake that turned into a lesson. So we won't really call it a mistake. It was a pivot, because I can imagine having that brick and mortar and thinking you're in the perfect location for it because of the area and the businesses that were around it. And then having to go, no more brick and mortar. I am now going to do virtual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
when you had to make that change, was there anything that made you think, no, I shouldn't pivot to something virtual? Like, was there anything that made you second guess it?
I think the biggest factor was the fear factor of, should I continue being a self-employed person, an entrepreneur, trying to run my own business? Or should I continue, which I had previously done unsuccessfully, right? That's one of the big reasons why I ended up starting my own business. I couldn't get back into any corporate jobs and the work that I'd done before. I just wasn't suited to it anymore. And I think that just came through in my job applications and resumes and so on. And then I started having this gap in my resume. So I did, after that first, closing my first business, I did think about, should I really try and continue doing this? Or should I just hang in there until I get a job, a job again, hired by some other company? And I think that door had closed for me through my experience of running the co-working space, because I absolutely loved that work. I loved the connections. I loved meeting all the other business owners like yourself, people who provide all that information and training and coaching or services that other business and other individuals need, and bringing people together and being able to choose my own hours and how I do things and how I run my business. I loved that so much that I didn't want to let that go and go back to being an employee, where you, even with some flexibility and a great job and a great boss and everything, you're still in their channel. You're running someone else's business or helping run someone else's business, and you're within that, the red tape and the bureaucracy. And I just found that I loved the freedom of decision making, not just setting your own hours, but the decision making and the quick turnaround and the snap decisions you can make when you find something that excites you.
Yeah, because the power is in your hands. And I like that you talked about the freedom of it, but I also like that you talked about knowing when to let go, because you had to know when to let go from the co-working space and to pivot into your new space. But at what point, when you were going through, well, not necessarily when you're going through the pivot, but at what point in this journey in the new business did you go, okay, this is working. This is what I need to do for sure.
Yes. I'd say literally the first 2 years, probably the first 2 to 3 years, because I had, through the co-working space, I had met so many people and so many networks of business owners and business groups and business networking providers, that I had so many connections and my name was out there now in the business world, that it became easier once I started setting up for finding work as a virtual assistant and then later virtual business manager. I already had the connections. I knew how to do the networking thing and how to keep growing that. And I got a good number of referrals from the beginning, or just met the right people, and it sort of took on its own speed and started snowballing a little bit. And I had a steady inflow of referrals from clients or business contacts that the first 2 to 3 years brought me enough momentum to say, this is something that can work, and this is something I can grow over time.
Okay. So it's based on referrals. And yes, networking is key. Now, are there moments in networking where you feel there's something that people misunderstand about your business journey?
About the business journey?
Yeah, about your business journey in particular. Is there anything that you feel
Right.
people misunderstand?
I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure what direction you're getting me into thinking here.
No, because, especially going from the co-working space and going virtual, and then, it's still on that referral basis. So people have to know you, people have to trust you, and they want to refer you. But you might encounter people, I can say, for example, oftentimes people might look at me and think that I have like there's always this wonder of, well, how do you do it? You must be stressed out all the time because you do so much and this, that, and the other. And my response to that is always, I'm incredibly organized. And that's the truth, right? I can do it because I'm very organized, and it might not be the same for people. But when people look at what you do and how you do it and the moves you're making, sometimes they have a preconceived notion as well. Like they might have 20 people behind them just for this one event. No,
Right.
It might be just me and two other people.
Yes. I think at the beginning I think when I started out, this is sort of over 10, 12 years, I've been in the business 12, 13 years now on the virtual provider side. At the beginning, it was still, what's a virtual assistant? You still had to explain it. And then a few years later, I had to explain that this is nothing to do with AI and a chatbot, which is also virtual. I'm a real person, and I'm doing this work for you. I'm not just online and answering some, artificial questions or drawing from online directories and so on. So initially it was explaining the role itself. And then it's well, what can you do, or what can you do for me? And that still varies depending on what the client needs. I think the term now is, and what it encompasses, is a lot better known, especially in the business world. Perhaps not in the corporate world. When you speak to them about what a virtual assistant is, they may still not know. But within small business owners, most of them have now heard of virtual assistants, or know someone who has one or has worked with one, or perhaps themselves they've worked with some already. So I no longer have to quite explain what my job description or my role is. It's more about my skill set and what specifically I do and don't provide as part of my business services.
Okay. So this is kind of the midway point, and this is where I usually like asking this question. So this segment is called The First Yes. There was one moment that changed everything. The first person who believed enough to say yes. The First Yes is our signature segment on Origin Story, where our guests revisit that first client, customer, investor, collaborator, or opportunity that validated their vision. It's about the breakthrough that shifts you from dreaming into doing, and the courage it took to step into that moment. Because sometimes one yes, it is all it takes to build momentum.
Yes.
So, Martina, tell us about your first yes.
It's funny that you should say it that way, because I totally remember who that was. And it was within that first year, after I had to switch from the bricks and mortar to working virtually and finding new clients now, and fast. And then also seeing, is there enough demand for virtual assistant? And funny enough, it was a connection that I'd made through my co-working space. So the location I had was in a 3-story building that had other businesses in it. One of the businesses on the same floor as mine, down the hall, was a physiotherapy and chiropractor office. And I had gone to the chiropractor and physiotherapist there and got treatment from her. And she was sort of an independent chiropractor and massage therapist, sorry, not physio, massage therapist.
Massage
And
therapist.
I had invited her, exactly. I'd invited her as a speaker to one of my networking events. It was an evening, I think, a wine and cheese, and here's a speaker talking about your health and your spine health and so on. And so we kind of become friends. And then when I closed the business and was starting out at home, and let her know, she knew what I was doing now. And she reached out to me and said, my husband needs help. He needs your help. And yes, precisely. So she made the connection. He was a business owner, entrepreneur, and was juggling a few balls, and had reached that point of growth where he could no longer manage everything himself. And so she set up the connection, and we met at a coffee shop in the neighborhood, and we had a chat. And he loved what I was sharing in terms of my experience and where I was heading. And he said, "This is what I need, and this is how much I'm willing to spend a month." And like, it was literally, writing on a piece of paper and sliding it across the table and saying, "This is how much I can, this is how much I can spend. And does that fit?" And I said, yes. And we shook hands. And literally that was a big client for me at that time. And I think I worked for him for a year and a half. And in that time, added other clients to my list. But that was sort of the reassurance I needed when I first started out, to say, yes, there is money to be made in this role, and there are clients who need my kind of support, my help.
Wow, that is amazing. Like, yeah, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And this is a great guy, and he just, his business grew more and then in a different direction. So I didn't work for him for multiple years, but we've stayed in touch. I still connect with him by email every now and then, and he's on my list to reach out to again, just to reconnect and see where he's at. But that was my pivotal moment when I had changed my business path.
Always have to remember that first yes, everyone.
It's
So
very empowering.
it is, and it's always, like, we have the origin story, and it's great to remember where you started, but that is a part of the start, because you start, but then when you get that first big yes or the first big check, it pushes you. Like, it's this extra surge that makes you want to keep running, or it also helps make you feel like what you're doing is not in vain. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have these
Absolutely.
memories.
Yes, definitely.
I remember my first actual check that I got sent to me from a company, and I remember like looking at that check, and I had it on my desk for months because
Yeah,
I wanted to just keep it.
exactly. And it's funny that even that, in my co-working space, I remember the name of my first client, or member as we call them, right? I remember that person's name, and I remember receiving the check for that first payment when I had the open house and announced the opening of this new co-working space. And a few people were milling about, and one person was immediately on board and said, "Here's my check. I'd like that desk over there, in that location." I still remember who that was, and as you did too, I proudly took a photo of that first payment, that first income as a self-employed person.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So now, if we're looking at entrepreneurship and you personally, how do you feel entrepreneurship has stretched you personally?
Oh wow, in so many ways. When you're coming out of an employee and job environment and career, you obviously, you have your skill, you have a great deal of knowledge, And then you start a business and you realize how little you know about running a business, because you have to wear not just many hats, but all the hats at the beginning. And when I started out, I realized how steep that learning curve was, how much I had to learn. I knew my skill set in terms of administrative support and organizing and event coordination, event and project coordination, and that kind of work. But then you're talking about sales, you're talking about marketing, looking at your business overheads, your financials. Now you're looking at needing a business coach because there's just so much you have to learn, or areas that you're weak in, like sales was really the thing I disliked the absolute most. I hated trying to sell myself and trying to get money out of people. And that mindset you have to obviously turn around and say, you're not asking or taking money from people, you're providing them with a service that they very dearly need, or a product that they really need. So you're not taking, you're actually giving. They happen to be paying you for that, but but you see that you're really providing that service. And as a service provider myself, that was part of that growth in the first couple of years, of getting the feedback from your clients who literally at the end of their tether and go, oh my God, I need some help. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm behind with this. I'm not getting this, I'm not getting a handle on such and such. And then stepping in and taking that off their hands and doing it for them and doing it well. And then the relief you get back and hear from your clients, that's just everything. That is so meaningful. So there was this growth period in terms of just learning the ins and outs of managing a business, learning what you can and should outsource to a specialist, accounting, bookkeeping, or administrative, or marketing and social media, those kinds of things. Learning that, learning and getting to know what you do and don't enjoy doing and are good at. So if you're not good at social media and you really don't like doing it, then you should really aim to put money aside, pay someone to do that, because if it's a dread for you and you're not doing it, and you should be doing it to get your business known, then you need to outsource. So there's so much. There was such a steep learning curve and so many balls up in the air when you're first starting out those first few years.
Entrepreneurship does push you to look into yourself and to be honest with yourself, because especially as women, we feel we can do everything and we can manage everything and we can juggle everything. But there are things that, yes, we can do it, but someone else can do it better, but we have to say it to ourselves. Or we can do it, but we just don't want to. Or we can do it, but our time is best spent doing something else. So we have to be honest with ourselves, look in that mirror. And when you're doing your whole morning motivations, also add, what am I going to be honest about today? What do I not need to do myself?
Yes, there's a lot of psychology. I've learned that there's sort of a great deal of psychology and, as you said, self-reflection and a journey of this self-discovery of, why don't I like doing sales or marketing? If you're shy, you're an introvert, you feel like you're not worthy, then there's the whole imposter syndrome that business owners talk about so much. And I was on a really excellent panel recently for International Women's Day, where women in great leadership roles still talked about how they had to fight and get through imposter syndrome, even in high-level positions.
It is the truth, because I think a lot of times we are meant to feel like either we don't deserve that level of power or authority, or we feel we should be what they consider to be a lady, or just, be seen and not heard. And I can understand that. And that is a lot of the growth that women need as entrepreneurs. Like, we need to pretty much feel like it's okay to ask for what we deserve. Now, don't ask for what you don't deserve, and don't ask for things because you heard the other person ask for it and you think, well, I do the same thing, so I deserve just as much, when you don't know that other person's story. But we need to be more confident in our asks. And the only ask that we don't need to do is asking for permission.
Correct. Yes.
So now, we did drop a lot of advice in the last question, but what advice would you give to women who are stuck at the beginning?
At the beginning, I would say build your business network and connections as quickly as possible. So that includes everything from attending networking events, seeking a mentor or a coach, or ideally both, finding individuals who are willing to share some of their wisdom and their learning curve so that you can either speed up or flatten the steepness of your learning curve when you're starting out. There's so much we need to know at the beginning. And there's so many, I don't want to say necessarily mistakes to make, but it basically just prolongs the journey, the learning journey of you reaching the point where you're feeling and actually more in charge of your business and doing it the best way possible for you and your clients and customers. So really surrounding yourself with other individuals, not just at the same level and going through the same challenges and struggles, but people who've already been there and who know how to get out of it and through it and grow. So I know that at the beginning, we're all on a shoestring budget when we start our business, and sometimes do it on the, as a side gig, building it up first till it's something secure. So the money that's available, obviously, to pay for coaching and mentorship and so on is always a little limited. But I think if you just go to your local business community, or many areas have a small business enterprise center, the SPEC, they provide a great deal of advice, learning opportunities, and support for businesses who are just starting out. So really lean into that as much as possible. You really have to get out there. And if you're an introvert or shy, you just really have to push yourself a little to get those connections and build your network, because that is your support network.
Yes, definitely. The community around you is what's very important. Very, very important. Now I can't believe it. We're at our last question, Martina. Time flies when you're having fun.
Well, I know, all this reminiscing.
Yeah. I would like for you to finish this sentence. It's our signature ending. My origin story taught me that
being a business owner is full of opportunities.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen.
That leaves it wide open.
That leaves it wide open. Oh my gosh, Martina, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Origin Story. Everyone out there, thank you as well for joining us. And I hope this conversation reminded you that every successful business begins with a decision. It's the courage to start, the resilience to keep going, and the belief that your vision matters. So if this episode resonated with you, be sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with a woman who is building something powerful of her own. And if you're a woman entrepreneur with a story to tell, I would love to hear from you. We will have the link to our intake form for you to be a guest on Origin Story in the description of this video. Until next time, keep building, keep believing, and remember, every empire starts with an origin story. Bye for now.